We begin in the United States, where the question of impeachment is being raised as President Donald Trump faces new and explosive allegations that he tried to shut down investigations into ties between Russia and his campaign team. The now-sacked FBI Director James Comey has released a memo in which he documents a conversation where President Trump asked him to shut down the FBI's inquiry into former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. The White House denies the allegations, but they've surfaced as outrage intensifies over the president passing classified information to the Russians. Anne Barker reports.
The New York Times report quotes a memo that James Comey apparently wrote after a meeting with the president at the Oval Office in February. It was the day after Michael Flynn had resigned as National Security Advisor for lying about his contact with Russia in the lead-up to last year's election. In the memo, Mr. Comey said the president had told him, quote,
"I hope you can let this go."
In other words, to shut down the FBI's investigation into links between Michael Flynn and other Trump associates and Russia. The memo said President Trump had told him Michael Flynn had done nothing wrong.
"I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He's a good guy. I hope you can let this go."
The Times article makes clear its reporters haven't seen the memo, but that James Comey had shared its existence with other FBI officials and close associates, one of whom had read parts of the memo to a Times reporter. Sources have also told CNN that James Comey was so appalled by the president's request he wanted to document it. In reply, the memo said Mr. Comey had told Mr. Trump nothing about curtailing the investigation into Michael Flynn and said only, "I agree, he's a good guy." Now, Democrats, including the party's Senate leader Chuck Schumer, have expressed shock at the latest allegations.
Mr. President, in a week full of revelation after revelation, on a day when we thought things couldn't get any worse, they have. Concerns about our national security, the rule of law, the independence of our nation's highest law enforcement agencies are mounting. The country is being tested in unprecedented ways.
The White House denies the allegations and says President Trump has never asked Mr. Comey or anyone to end any investigation, including any investigation involving Michael Flynn. It says any investigation.
Unprecedented ways.
The White House denies the allegations and says President Trump has never asked Mr. Comey or anyone to end any investigation, including any investigation involving Michael Flynn. It says the New York Times report is not a truthful or accurate portrayal of the conversation. Democrat Adam Schiff, a member of the House Intelligence Committee, which is also investigating the Russia allegations, wants James Comey to give evidence about the matter.
Well, I think we ought to ask the director to come in to testify. I think that ought to be the first step. We ought to ask if there are notes. Notes that are taken around the time of the conversation would be, I think, very powerful evidence of what took place during those conversations. And then I think we follow up from there.
This latest bombshell comes a week after Donald Trump sacked Mr. Comey as FBI boss, a move many critics say was also motivated by the president's desire to thwart the FBI investigation into Russia's alleged interference in the US election. Soon after the sacking, Donald Trump warned James Comey against leaking anything negative against him and said, quote, he better hope there were no secret tapes of their conversations that he, Donald Trump, could use in retaliation. Now, legal and political figures, including independent Senator Angus King, are seizing on those comments and demanding the president produce any tapes or other evidence he has of his meeting with James Comey.
The president made this a little bit surprising remark the other day about tapes. I think now's the time. If there were tapes, we need to have them.
Elijah Cummings, a Democrat member of the House Intelligence Committee, says if the White House refuses, it may be forced to hand any tapes over.
We'll be asking Chairman Chaffetz to issue a subpoena for the documents about Flynn's tenure at the White House that they have refused to give us so far. And I think that you'll hear about hearings being scheduled to address this issue.
Lawyers and political experts are now debating the gravity of the allegations against President Trump and whether they amount to a crime. Some say the accusations, if true, amount to a clear obstruction of justice, and many argue there could be grounds for Donald Trump to face impeachment. David Gergen is a former presidential advisor who served during the administrations of Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan and Bill Clinton.
I think we're in impeachment territory now for the first time. Well, I think that the obstruction of justice was the number one charge against Nixon that brought him down. Obstruction of justice was the number one charge against Bill Clinton, which led to his indictment in the House. He won in the Senate. And I think I'm a lapsed lawyer. I cannot tell you whether it meets all the legal definitions, but I can tell you from a lay point of view, it looks like he was trying to impede the investigation. He was using his power to do that, and when James Comey didn't go along with him, when he wasn't his boy, he fired him, which I think is also relevant to the question of what he was trying to do. So from my point of view, this is of enormous consequence for his presidency.
These latest allegations come at a particularly difficult time for Donald Trump. Not only does he face accusations he tried to obstruct the course of justice, but he's about to take off on his first foreign trip as president, visiting Europe and the Middle East, which looks set to be overshadowed by an explosive scandal back home.
Anne Barker reporting.